Perfect. Let's go back to this. We want to look at some techniques, but I also want to show 6 to 8 markers, guys, with a 6 to 8 mark question for section 1. And again, we'll unpack these more tomorrow. But introduction, I just have a 1-sentence intro. For the 2 body paragraphs, if you're asked about 2 texts, I do 1 text in each body paragraph, and then I have a 1-sentence conclusion. So because of the limited time for this exam, you have to be so precise and deliberate with every single sentence. Hopefully that's what you're getting out of this. I know exactly what's going in every sentence. I know how many sentences are in each part because I don't have time to do an extra sentence that I don't need. I don't want to do that. So a 1-sentence intro where you establish the key concept, answer the question. If you get asked about 2 texts and it says compare them, the best way to start the introduction is whereas. Whereas text 1 considers this about anomalies, text 2 suggests this about anomalies. So starting with whereas is setting you up to make a direct comparison between the 2 texts. So I would always start my intro with that if you got asked about 2 texts for a 6 to 8 marker. Remember, 6+ marker is a mini essay structure. So it's 4 paragraphs technically, even though the intro is only 1 sentence. Maybe it's 2 sentences if you need to elaborate. So 1 to 2. Conclusion's definitely only going to be 1 sentence. It's not that important. Prioritize the body paragraphs. You might be asking, well, what do our body paragraphs need to look like? They need to look like this, the 3 or the 4 marker. If it's a 6 marker, I would probably say you might be able to get away with just a 3-mark paragraph for each one. So you do a topic sentence, 2 pieces of analysis. I would, if you have time, aim for this, where you have a topic sentence, 3 pieces of analysis. Don't worry about the link sentence. It's not that valuable. It won't be the difference between getting full marks or 1 less. So I would have 2 of these kind of paragraphs where you have a topic sentence, 3 sentences of analysis. Do that twice for each one. 6 and 7 markers are basically the exact same. So just treat them the same way. I've only seen an 8 marker once in someone's trial, but you'll mainly be dealing with 5 markers and then 6 and 7 markers. With the 5 marker, that's more like this, but you can have 1 extra sentence of analysis with a link sentence, or you can even just do 2 shorter body paragraphs like this, one after the other. Any questions about that?
Sorry, so what's the difference between sentence 2 and a 3 marker and a body and 6 marker?
What's the difference between, sorry, what?
So what's included in body 1? How many techniques?
Oh, yeah. So up to, I would aim, if you have time, to do this. This would be the 4-mark response is like 1 of your body paragraphs.
Okay, yeah.
If you're running short on time, I believe you can get away with this for a 6 marker, let's say. Does that make sense? So you have a topic sentence, 2 sentences of analysis, but if you can afford to do an extra one, do an extra one. And then you have to go to the next paragraph and do the same thing. So what you're seeing here is you do everything you're seeing on the screen now twice for the 2, because you need to do that for 2 bodies, which means you need quite a lot more time for the 6 and 7 markers, right? You guys need to have like 15 minutes for a 6 or 7 marker. So don't waste time on the 3 and 4 markers. You really want to be pumping those out in like 5, 6, 7 minutes, which means you need to be very clear on this structure and you need to have practiced applying it many times. Okay, what about technique spotting before we just have a look at a sentence of analysis? How do you spot techniques really quickly? Maybe you've seen, for those familiar with the YouTube channel, you've probably seen a couple of these useful backup techniques. Does anyone know for written text, we use MEST. So you should all say to yourselves now, it's hard to get you all to do it with your mics unmuted, but you should all be saying right now, MEST is best. Or everyone just say that to yourselves right now. MEST is best. It's not because MEST is actually the best. MEST are just a great set of backup techniques if you can't see anything else. M stands for modality, okay? M stands for modality. Modality refers to how definitive the language is. So if I say, I must teach you today, I must teach you, well, because I'm saying I must do it, I'm very certain and definitive. So that's high modality. The same could be said for, I will never teach you again. I will never teach you again. Is that high modality or low modality?
High modality.
Very good. Even though it's a negative word, never, it's very certain. So it's high modality. I'm not sure if I'll continue to teach you guys. I'm not sure. Not sure is uncertain. So what modality is that?
Low.
Nice. So low modality means that it's kind of uncertain language. So make sure that if you use modality, you either say high modality or low modality. Just say, don't just say modality. Emotive language, if you see that there's a lot of exclamation marks or there's a lot of emotion in the sentence, or there's a lot of passion in the sentence, someone's yelling, that's very emotive. So if there's a lot of emotion in the sentences that you're reading, you can just say emotive language. It's just a backup. It's not a great technique, but it's a good safety net. What does syntax mean? S for syntax in MEST. MEST is best.
Isn't that sentence structure?
Correct. Very good. So make sure, just like with modality, where you have to say low modality or high modality, you either want to say short syntax if it's a really short sentence. What's the opposite of that?
Long syntax.
Close. It's got the word long in it, but guys, it's not called long syntax. Does anyone know what the word is? Yes. Very good. Elongated. That starts with an E, then it literally has the word long in it. So everyone, again, you should say this to yourselves right now. Elongated. Everyone say that to yourselves. Elongated. You want to remember that. Long sentences are elongated syntax. So you can say the use of elongated syntax in, then say what the quote is, and then say what it reveals. Just like I showed you with that structure. What about tone? Make sure that you say what type of tone. Make sure you say what type of tone is present. Okay. So is it an excited tone? Is it an emphatic tone? Is it a depressed tone? Is it a disappointed tone? I mean, these are basic techniques, but they're better than nothing. So that's why I use them as kind of backups. Syntax is a great one, actually. Tone, it's not a fancy technique, but you don't need fancy techniques for section 1. You do not need fancy techniques. You just need to have a technique, and you need to be able to explain it in connection with the question. Just quickly as well, before I show you the next written text acronym, Rose asked, is having only the JETL course sufficient to get prepared for trials? I mean, having the course itself is obviously going to help you, but you need to put together your drafts in the way that I'm saying. So it's a sufficient resource for sure, but you still need to prepare your drafts and follow those steps that I went through at the start of this, where you time your essays, you memorize. You still need to do that as part of it, but it's a sufficient resource in terms of outside materials that you can use to immediately get the quality up in your responses. Rose also asks, any questions on that? Sorry.
But would you recommend using like JSTOR articles and?
Well, the thing with the JETL, this is why we built the JETL platform. The analysis you see in there is informed by JSTOR articles. So instead of you guys having to read all of these like scholarly articles, we've tried to get together all of the research and then put it together in a really practical way for you with the resources that are on jetl.com, right? Also, Ignite HSC was the old website, of course. That's still active, but jetl.com is the updated stuff. It's like you're seeing a compilation of all of those scholarly articles, and then we've compressed it in a way where it's just immediately applicable to your essays. So that's what you get on jetl.com as resources. Rose, what will we get out of the workshop tomorrow? As I said, what I'm showing you now, we're going to do lots of application. So you're basically going to practice doing every type of question. So you're going to feel really confident spotting it. I'll give you one-on-one feedback. It's that feedback element. Like guys, these workshops from tomorrow to Friday are small groups. That's why there's limited places. There's only a few places. You get one-on-one attention during it in terms of me looking at some of your answers, and we can work together. You'll see how we're editing them. We'll see how we're improving them. So you'll go out of tomorrow knowing how to write a full mark response for every type, and you will have practiced it and you would have got feedback on it. So that's the aim of tomorrow. Okay. The other written text acronym is, and again, like I hope today is useful for you. I'm showing you as much as I can in this time. I'm just trying to keep it to the essentials, because obviously we don't have all the time in the world to go through everything. I'm trying to show you the full course, at a broad view. So The other one that you should now say to yourself is you don't want to have a mishap. Don't have a mishap, right? Mishap, metaphors, imagery. Make sure you say what type of imagery. Like, is it visual imagery? Is it sensory imagery? Is it oral or auditory, right? That's AUD. Auditory is to do with hearing. Is it to do with touch? What's it called when something's to do with how something feels? Very good. Tactile. If anyone has a question, by the way, if you guys are raising your hand, is that to answer? I'm sorry if I'm not meaning to ignore those. I'll start looking at those again. Okay. Good. So tactile imagery is another one. Natural imagery. If you see imagery of like leaves and trees, then that works as well. What about simile, hyperbole, alliteration, personification? Does anyone want to ask about any of those? Hyperbole is where you exaggerate something, you know? Yesterday I ran for 1,000 miles to get to the shop. It's like, okay, I didn't actually run 1,000 miles. That's hyperbole. Any questions about those? So don't have a mishap. Messed is best. They're great techniques to know going into the exam. Cami, when will you post clips of the paid workshops on your YouTube channel? Well, I'm not going to post a lot of the clips of the paid ones. That's what I'm saying. You get access, you get one-on-one feedback. I'm not going to post all of that on the YouTube channel, but I will post a lot of this kind of stuff and do as much as I can to help. But obviously, people who pay to come, you guys will get that one-on-one attention. I'm not going to be sharing everything online. So there'll only be small clips from those kind of things, but I would just expect to see clips from these kind of workshops. You guys have to come from tomorrow to Friday if you want that one-on-one feedback and to see that content. Okay. So visual text, SPS is a good one. So always look when you see an image for the salient feature. What is salient? What is the thing that your eyes are immediately drawn to? That's a great technique if you guys get an image. Just first of all, try and say, what's the salient feature? Okay? You can also think about what perspective are we as the viewer entering the image or the shot. So you can say how the viewer is positioned in the image. And then you have symbolism, right? Are there any symbols in there? And what are they symbolic for? I think just salience and symbolism is usually enough to do a visual text response. Excuse me. Any questions on that? How would you use perspective, Amy? Good question. So for instance, I've seen images before where it felt like the viewer was looking in through a computer screen or like a tablet. So you would literally say, and it's good, I'm glad you asked, because the way you say it is the image is framed. Everyone should write this down if you want to try and use perspective in an answer. The image is framed from the perspective of. That's how you go into it, if that answers that, Amy. So for instance, the image is framed from the perspective of a computer screen, allowing the viewer to enter, right, the human experience of, cyber reality or something like that. Like that could literally be the sentence. So what is the perspective and how is it framed? I wouldn't necessarily prioritize that as a technique to use. I'm saying if you just notice that it's very deliberate in how we're seeing the shot, that could be significant. Guys, how could something be made salient? How could something be made prominent? What kind of techniques come to mind there?
Bolding the words.
What's that, sorry?
Making the words bold, the ones that they're trying to...
the words, right.
Yeah.
I suppose so. I would avoid like textual analysis for a visual text though. I would avoid kind of quote, going into the quotations and things like that. You can use them to add on, but I would really focus primarily on the visual techniques. But yes, you're right. Emboldened text could be a thing, but I would prioritize something else, and maybe you could add that in addition to it.
Visible and invisible vectors.
Yeah, vector lines. Vector lines, guys, are lines that kind of imagine the horizon of an ocean and there's a boat in the middle. The horizon, which will take you into the boat, is a vector line. Okay, so vector lines kind of dictate how your eyes move through the image and see the image. Okay, that's very good. What else?
Like positioning, like things like smack bang in the middle that are like large.
Very good, very good. And also don't forget, like the positioning of something in the foreground, that could easily be a way of making something salient, or in the background, you know, there could be a juxtaposition. Juxtaposition means contrast, like two things being contrasted. Very good. So positioning, you've got scale as well. If something's really large compared to everything else, then that's the scale of the particular feature. So that scale could make it salient, and you can say that in the sentence. The ship is made salient through its disproportionately large scale. That's literally could be the thing. And then you say what it means. What's the effect of that? What's it called when you contrast lighting with darkness? When there's different kind of shades and there's something brightly lit and there's something quite dark and shadowy. Very good. Chiaroscuro. Everyone should write that down. Chiaroscuro is CHIAROSCURO. And I'm going to put that in the chat. I just wrote in the chat how to spell chiaroscuro. That is a contrast between light and dark. Okay, so everyone can see that in the chat, hopefully. That's how you spell it. Pat Gat. So if we attend a workshop throughout the week, will we get access to purchase an HSC workshop later on, or will it be free? Yeah, so it's still deciding on how we're going to structure it, but I'm probably going to do a free one, and I'm going to do a free one, and there'll be a paid one as well as an extension of it. But after your trials, guys, you will have gotten feedback base, and then you can look at your essays. You might have lost some marks in different sections. I'm going to run a session where you get live feedback on how to improve your essays and your responses based on your trials. So I'll look at some of your section 1 answers as well, and we're just going to go through how to improve it. You guys will have priority for that if you come between Monday to Friday. If you come to any of those, then you can be part of that and get access to that feedback session where we go through live how to improve your responses after trials. Okay, but I should note as well, the workshops this week, you get the feedback in there as well. This is just after you get your marks back, we can go over how to actually get those improved and get you closer to full marks. All right. Yeah, just good use of the chat, guys. Just keep adding questions there as you think of them. Otherwise, you can just shout out when I have a pause. So how does the image represent a unique human quality? Don't pay too much attention to the unique part here, but a human quality. Can everyone write down a human quality that they think is connected to this image? And if you can think of more than one word that could be an answer, write those down. So write down as many words that could be qualities that you could use for this question. Everyone do that now. Oh, good. You're writing them in the chat. That's good. Yeah, put them in the chat. Help each other that way. Good. Curiosity. Excellent. Contemplation. Nice. That works. Ambition. Good. Innovation. Isolation. I think you could stretch it to isolation as well. That's good. I like these different interpretations. Imagination. Very good. Search for meaning. Observer. Rose, observer might be, you might need to be a little bit more specific on that one. Like, what do you mean by that? Like, what's the human quality, like, of observing? Maybe try and be a little bit more precise. Gloria, alienation. Yeah, there's definitely a sense of alienation, being left out from that world out there. That's good. And guys, there's no one right answer. So I'm just, as long as I can see a connection, then it would get the mark. Interpretation. Kush, you probably want to be a little bit more specific about that. Interpretation. Judah, tranquility. Yeah, so if you could justify that. Courage, and what you'd have to do, Miriam, courage. Yeah, I like that as well. Courage is a nice take on it. You know, kind of, there's this protagonist at the front about to kind of embark on this journey, and that does take courage. So really nice take there. So you guys can see from the list of words you just all wrote in the chat, how many different ways you could actually answer this. Adventurous, very nice, Rose. That's it. That's great. Any other ones? You guys are doing well here. Man versus society. You might want to be a bit more precise with that, because that's not really a a quality, is it? That's just you're making a statement that it's man against society. You might want to be a bit more specific there, Pat, about what the quality is. Culture as well is too vague, Isaac. So you guys have got to be careful. You guys hopefully can see the difference between an actual quality and then some of these more vague answers that aren't quite cutting it. So I'm trying to make a distinction here. Man versus society, culture, interpretation, observer, those words are a bit vague. All the other ones are actual qualities. So they could work. All right, so basically your topic sentence could just say, the image represents the human quality of curiosity. Okay? Now, why is that a simple but effective sentence? Can someone tell me why that's a simple but effective sentence? The image represents the human quality of curiosity. It answers it, it uses the actual word of the question, quality. But have I just said the words of the question? Have I only said the words of the question, or have I said more?
No, you added more to it.
Yeah, everyone have a look at what I just put in the chat. The human quality of curiosity. See, of is a really powerful word that will help you expand on the key term of the question. Yeah, I added a precise answer, guys. If you can say something specific in response to the question, it's that easy to just tick off that box. What I want you to now do, guys, because I like how you guys are contributing on the chat and you're doing well. Can you all just write an example of one sentence of analysis that you would use for this? This is going to be really useful for you. This is the kind of stuff we do in the workshops, by the way, but I do it on a Google Doc and everyone has answers and we go through all of them. But here is just a good feeler for you. Everyone try and do one sentence of analysis that would then back up the quality that you spoke about already, that you identified. Okay, so that's enough for our topic sentence. Now I need 2 sentences of analysis. I want a full sentence. So Judah, if you're going to make that identification and then connect it to something, write that as a full sentence. The bland palette reveals this. Let's see it as a full sentence, guys. So everyone try and write in a full sentence. Who's got one? I mean, Judah, you just had to kind of convert that into a full sentence. I'm keeping the image up so you guys can see it. But what I'm looking for, guys, is you to use one of these sentences. See sentence number 2 here? The technique. Let's have a look. Amy said the body language. Now, there's no quote here, guys, so that you have to describe the image instead. And it looks like that's what you've done perfectly. The body language of the faces the background. That sounds a little bit awkward in terms of I don't know if that makes sense. The body language of the persona facing the background, or I think maybe you just want to rephrase that a little bit to make that clearer. I know what you mean. Highlights his thoughts and contemplation of his environment. We might want to make that a little bit more precise. So let's go back to the image. It's not bad. It's not a bad sentence. I think we can tighten that up. Isaac said the significant use, we don't even need significant. The use of scaling within the image presents a salience, revealing the human quality of alienation. See, Isaac, that's far too vague. I don't know what you mean. Scaling of what within the image? No, everyone listen to this. Isaac said scaling, but he didn't say scaling of what. There's like a giant statue in the background. You could have said that. So you need to say what was scaled, Isaac. You need to say what was salient. You didn't tell me what was salient. You could say, the scaling of something makes it salient or renders it salient, comma, revealing, and then it doesn't make sense how that reveals the human quality of alienation. I don't understand how that's connected to alienation. So you guys still have to be specific here. It has to make sense. Let's have a look at Gloria. So the human qualities of the human quality, it should be quality of isolation, is represented through the disproportionate size of the male in the middle of the photo compared to other people. But I don't see, this is the thing, Gloria, with your answer. I don't know how that means he's isolated. It's not clear how him being extra large at the front means he's isolated. So guys, you have to make a clear connection between the technique and the effect. Here's an example I'm going to give you guys. So basically with the image that's on screen now, the chiaroscuro lighting, right? The chiaroscuro, that word I said, there's a contrast between the shadowy foreground and the light background, right? That could demonstrate the persona's alienation from, you know, a brighter world outside, or the world of his imagination, or that could suggest his kind of his immersion into his imagination, right? Outside of the norm. So he's going out of like the shadows of, you know, his past into the world of possibility, future possibilities. So you really need to be specific about how someone's alienated or how they're immersed. But chiaroscuro lighting would have been a good one as well. Just some other things as well, like Alessia, you said the technique. Guys, you don't ever need to say the word technique. Don't say the technique, just say what it is. So you should have just said the positioning of the man on a higher ground. Yeah, you could have said in the foreground, the positioning of the persona in the foreground with the landscape in the distance emulates the observer qualities. I think observer I'm still struggling with as a word in that context, but you can say emulates the curiosity of humans as they, you know, contemplate new possibilities. See, there's that little bit of an extension there to make it more specific, just to lock in the marks. So hopefully that helps there. You just want to be a little bit more specific on that one. Judah, last one I'm going to look at here. Using a bland palette combined with the formal attire of the protagonist. Okay, that's good. I would probably say by using, to make this make sense, by using a bland palette combined with the formal attire of the protagonist, the formal costuming. Attire is good, but costuming is like a very technical visual term. So you could say costuming. The image demonstrates how the banality of a suburban environment evokes a sense of isolation and disconnect. Urban environment. Okay, different interpretation. I don't think it's like, you could interpret that as urbanized, I suppose. It's more like an imaginary world. But as long as your interpretation is kind of makes sense with what you've said, that's fine. Sorry, suburban. I realize you've said suburban. Evokes a sense of isolation and disconnect. Well, one final point here is that you don't need to say isolation and disconnect. You should just say one word. Everyone tends to say two. It's not going to get you the extra mark by adding another similar word. So just say evokes a sense of isolation, because that's really all you're saying. By saying and disconnect, you're not really adding anything else. So you just pick one. Try not to double up on the words that you're using in your description. But otherwise, that's good, Judah, that would pass. The author incorporates multiple pathways in the image. Rose, the author incorporates multiple pathways in the image to establish direct visible vectors, which lead you to the salient image of a statue. Okay, this is getting a bit long. I like the technical analysis at the start, but then you add the while as well as an image of the sun. You don't need that. Just go visible vector lines, which lead you to the salient image of a statue. That's good. Let's go straight to the effect now. To explore the human quality of adventurousness, I think you'd have to say the human quality of adventurousness. It doesn't make sense to say the human quality of adventurous. Through building a world of possibilities. Otherwise, that's really good, Rose. Guys, this is the final one. Don't submit any more on there because I'm not going to have time to get to them. But everyone just watch what I'm doing. I'm just going to take Rose's because I like the general idea, but there's a few simple tweaks. So everyone look at, no one else write in the thing, because I'm going to put my my variation of Rose's right below it so you can see the difference, right? So multiple pathways. I wouldn't say the author, because they're not really, they are the author of it, but they're not, it's not a written text. So I'd just say the composer incorporates multiple pathways in the image to establish direct visible vectors, which lead you to the salient image, which lead the viewer. It's the viewer to the salient image of a statue. Then I'm going to do a comma and just say exploring the human quality of adventurousness, I believe you'll have to say, through building a world of possibilities. There we go. So I've just tweaked Rose's very slightly. I tried not to change more than I had to, but hopefully that helps you guys. Any questions about how I've done that alteration there? Just speak out, because I'm going to move on from the chat on that.